Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I've learned as I've grown into the person that I am today. And I also read meditations. So let's get into the meditations today. I brought the two Melody Beatty books with me, as well as A View of Positive Thinking, Daily Inspiration, Wisdom, and Courage by Cindy Spiegel. I usually start the videos off with this book, even though the meditations over here are sometimes just a sentence or a quote. I love this book so much, so let's get into this book first. All right, today is July 21st. Let's see what the book has to say. I pulled open September, so I'm wondering, don't rush us to September yet. Maybe September has something good in store for us. Okay, July 21st, an exercise in letting go of fear. This is so interesting. I actually just talked about this on my vlog because I got a really good night's sleep last night, did not vlog last night, and I actually filmed my vlog for yesterday, today, and I was talking about my meeting last night, my home group meeting that I went to, and the topic in our group was fear and how we manage fear in recovery. And if you are somebody that's in sobriety or in recovery, then you know that we talk a lot about fear and the 100 forms of fear that lead us, into our addiction many times and things like that. So fear is something that we talk a lot about in recovery from addiction. And managing fear is something that we talk about, as we continue to stay sober. So I always think that fear is a good thing to talk about. All right, July 21st, an exercise in letting go of fear. Fear prevents you from showing up in your greatest capacity. Instead of letting fear dictate your circumstance, use it to shift you forward into uncharted territory. Without judgment, list everything that you are afraid of, from the seemingly unimportant to your greatest fears. Choose 5 fears and decide on 2 action steps that you can take to move toward letting each fear go. Repeat as often as necessary. This is a really great meditation, and one of the things that we do on a 4-step inventory in recovery is that after we have made a list of resentments and gone through, and there's a lot that you do with resentments, but then you make a list of your fears, your real fears and your superficial fears, all of your fears. You make a list of them, and then you discuss how you've been managing your fears, right? And if that's working for you, and what's your part in continuing this fear and things like that. And for me, my fears can be everything from, in my time of being in sobriety, my fears can be everything from like unrealistic fears because I live in the middle of Indiana that's pretty landlocked, to being my fear of great white sharks, which is probably my greatest fear on the earth, to I don't love to fly, that's one of my fears as well, to also like fears of success, fears of failure, fears of relationships ending, fears of, like people leaving me, things like that. I've had so many different fears that have shifted in and out of my life. A lot of times, depending on where I'm at in my life, and what's going on with my life at that moment, my fears sometimes are mirror images of what I am going through in my life. And the way that I manage that, one of the things that, just to put this out there, so to explain to you and how we talk about managing fears, one of the things that became obvious to me in doing my last inventory when I went over it with my sponsor was on about the 5th fear or the 3rd fear. So the way that I did it was somebody had given me a list of all of these different fears. There was probably like 50 or 100 fears in this list, and I just literally went through and wrote down each fear that applied to me, right? And one of the things that my sponsor said to me on about my 3rd or 5th fear was, she said, the way that you manage your fears is consistent. Do you see that? And so, like, we would talk about a fear, and she'd say, what do you do with that? Like, let's talk about, like, my fear of sharks, right? If I'm in Florida and I want to go swim in the ocean, I just push that fear away. I'm just like, I don't think about it. I just kind of, like, whatever. And maybe that's good for a fear, like a fear of sharks, right? But when you're talking about fear of success or fear of failure or something like that, to push it down and to not really look at where does that fear originate? What's that fear? Where's that fear coming from? All of that kind of stuff means that I'm not really taking a realistic look at the fears in my life. My way of managing them is to just out of sight, out of mind, right? Well, sometimes it's better to look at a fear directly in its face and push through it and say, this is why the fear exists, what can I do, and why do I need to continue to manage it, instead of look at removing the fear from my life, if that makes sense. And so at about the third or the fifth one, she looked at me and she goes, how's this working for you? And she's like, you know, when you have a fear in your life, what you do is you just push it away and you act like it doesn't exist in your life. I'm like, yeah, it's not working very well for me. So I think that fears are a great thing for us to discuss, especially as sober, recovering people. But even if we're not, I think that to make a list of your fears and to look at them, and like I said, they can be a fear of anything, right? You know, I can remember, and before my mom passed away and got sick, I can remember one of my biggest fears ever was like, I don't ever know what I'll do if like one of my parents passes away. Like I don't really know how I'll handle that situation. And as difficult as it has been, and as hard as it has been losing my mom, you know, like I have made it through. And that fear at that moment, like, there was so much more that overrode that fear of losing a parent. It was, you know, the memories and all of this kind of stuff of just like going through that process. It wasn't really at that moment. The fear of losing a parent, what has been realized to me by inventorying that, was really about so many other things. It wasn't just about that loss, you know? And had I really looked at what that statement really meant to me, like what happens if I lose one of my parents, you know, a lot of it is I'm an only child and I only have two parents. Part of it is being very alone in this world, you know? And one of the things that has been just fantastic in the last, you know, 13 years of my life is my husband and how his family has just brought me in and allowed me to be part of their family and, you know, just really made me feel part of the family. You know, like his mom always says, you're one of my sons. So I don't really have that fear of being alone that much today. And the other thing is that I realize, and I've known this for quite some time, ever since I came out, you know, that we have a family of origin and we have a family of choice. And I have a lot of people in my family of choice today, you know. I don't have any siblings, but my cousin is so much like a sister to me. And my best friend, Tanya Jean, is so much like an older sister to me. And, you know, so many friends of mine play roles in my life, you know. And, Tanya's husband has always been like a father figure type for me. My father is fantastic. I have a great relationship with him, you know, but Tanya's husband has existed in ways for me that I never knew I needed, you know, and so I call him up when something's going on because, you know, like he's very good with like house stuff and car stuff, and I'll call him up and I'll be like, you know, I don't know what to do with this or with that or whatever, and he's been fantastic with that, you know, and I've just really been blessed to have a lot of, you know, sister brother types in my life, you know, father mother types in my life. And so I think it's that fear of being alone isn't so present anymore. And so I don't know that. I also know this. I have learned to appreciate the time that I have with people instead of fearing the time that they're going to be gone. And I think that's really hard, but when you've lost some people that are really, really important to you, what you realize is we're but on borrowed time as it is, right? Like we only are here for a limited amount of time and none of us know when our last days are coming, right? So I've learned to really appreciate that time instead of pushing it away, you know? If you watch my vlogs, you'll know that when Pee-Pee was sick, one of the things that I would say is, I wish that I could just stop time. I wish I could just stop time and it would be Alex, Pee-Pee, Boo, and Tucker and I forever, and that would be it, right? That's not realistic. And I've had to take a look at that. You know, I've had to take a look at that in life. Stuff happens, you know? And I think that our fear is often based in the unknown of what's going to happen next, at least for me. And so I've just had to realize that each day that I wake up is a gift and live each day with gratitude of the people and the things that I have in my life today instead of looking at what I'm about to lose down the road, because we never know. We never know, you know? So that was a great meditation. All right, let's, I looked down at my two books, and the first one that I looked at was The Language of Letting Go. So let's read from this first. July 21st, let's see what you have to say to us today. Being is enough. We are not always clear about what we are experiencing or why. In the midst of grief, transition, transformation, learning, healing, or discipline, it's difficult to have perspective. That's because we have not learned the lesson yet. We are in the midst of it. The gift of clarity has not yet arrived. Our need to control, here we go, can manifest itself as a need to know exactly what's going on. Here we are. This is the fear of the unknown. We cannot always know. Sometimes we need to let ourselves be and trust that clarity will come later in retrospect. If we are confused, that is what we are supposed to be. The confusion is temporary. We shall see. The lesson, the purpose, shall reveal itself in time, in its own time. It will all make perfect sense later. Today I will stop straining to know what I don't know, to see what I can't see, to understand what I don't yet understand. I will trust that being is sufficient and let go of my need to figure things out. I really like this. There's not a lot of these meditations that I don't like. I always finish reading and I'm like, oh, I love this meditation or whatever. But, this is furthermore about the fear, but it's also about not needing to control every outcome of your life. Which as addicts and alcoholics, we often try to, or people that have addicts and alcoholics in our life, we often are trying to control any kind of outcome, of the unknown. How do you control something that you don't know is going to happen? You can't, right? So it's just absolute lunacy. And in recovery, we also know that doing the same thing over and over and over again is the definition of insanity, right? So it's about, at some point, letting go of that control, living in today and realizing that just being today, if I got up and I did the best that I possibly could today, not I wrote a Pulitzer Prize winning novel or I saved somebody's life or, whatever. But if I just got up today and I showed up, I suited up and I showed up and I did the best job that I could be or I could do today and I did the best that I was the best that I could be today. Some days that is enough, Some days we struggle so hard that just getting up and walking through every single day is just enough. And we have to acknowledge that, right? And stop pushing ourselves so hard that we see somebody else and we think, oh my God, look at all that they do or whatever. And the reality is that some days just being is absolutely enough, and not trying to look into the future and control the future and see what's coming next, because we don't really have a lot of control like that sometimes. So great meditations. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.